Welcome to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This is the podcast for dairy owners, managers, and their trusted advisors who are looking to take themselves and their businesses to their next level of performance, resilience, and success in the dairy farming business. I'm your host, Peggy, and it's my mission to bring you the stories and thought leaders to help take you to your next up level. On this episode, we are going to have some fun today because joining me are a mother and daughter who many of our listeners know, each for their own contributions to the dairy industry. And so if you're on social media, you may know Annaliese Wegner as the modern day farm chick, where she brings her life as a dairy farmer, mom, and professional side hustler to life. And you can always expect authenticity with a side of snarky sarcasm. And if you've ever met her mom, Liz Griffith, you will know where Annaliese gets it from. Liz is what I would call the OG advocate. She's been telling dairy stories since before it was cool, before social media even existed. And for a lot of dairies, with her consulting work, she has become the person people call when they need some help, whether it's managing employees, recruiting team members, or other HR needs. And she always does it fashionably because Liz has an online boutique called A Farm Chick's Closet. But what you may not know about this mother and daughter is that they are both rolling out a new way to do what they love, empower and support the people of the dairy community. And so we are going to hear more about that today, along with some friendly banter about motherhood, speaking out for dairy, and living life their way. This episode is sponsored by Uplevel Dairy Podcast founding partner Adiseo, a global leader in nutritional solutions and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production, capture more value from components, and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. Welcome to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, Liz and Annaliese.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
And again, I am so excited to have you both joining us today. And like I said, this is a little bit of a shout out to Mother's Day, as our listeners are going to be tuning into this in early May, and a way to honor farm moms, dairy moms, incredible women in this industry. And what better way to do it than with a mother and daughter like the two of you? Two women that I personally admire, personally look up to, and I'm so glad to have these connections and conversations with. And so, all right, Liz, my first question for you is, what was it like raising Annaliese and her two sisters, three girls, on a dairy farm?
Well, it was fun. It was a joy. As many know, I didn't grow up on a farm. So it was new raising children on a dairy. And when I first was married, our dairy was considered small. It was 80 cows. And during the time of having children, we expanded. We went through 3 large expansions, ended up at 1,600. And as we grew, we gave these girls, more and more responsibilities on the farm. And Annaliese, I'll heckle you a little bit. Sometimes she hated it. Other times she loved it. But it's what, molded her to who she is today. Some of the fun things, I love girls. I love clothes. Years ago, I also had a children's boutique. And, I wanted them to not only have a great work ethic and really learn about creating food that we eat as a family and that, we serve to our communities, but I wanted them to learn responsibility and also be a girl. So some of the times that they would struggle is, they'd have cheerleading practice, have to go feed calves, then run to point ballet. So they may have stunk a little bit once in a while. But again, they did it and they loved it. They wanted to do it. And that's what made it so fun. Other times it was a little hard because, as struggling farmers, building and growing, we didn't always get, the fun time off, the fun vacations. So what we did, and I hope Annaliese and the other girls will agree, is we'd go to cow shows, and that a lot of times was our mini vacation, if you will. We'd bring the kiddie pool, we'd stay at a hotel, and meet all the other great farm families that we showed cattle with.
Yeah, so you enjoyed being a girl mom and also teaching these girls some responsibility and making these dairy activities your vacation time and your family time together. And so what something you just mentioned, Liz, was there were some things that you gave to Annaliese as her chores and duties that she maybe didn't like so much. So Annaliese, what was the worst thing your mom made you do when you were a kid?
Clean the office. So we hated cleaning the office. I would have much rather been doing farm chores, hanging out at the farm. I didn't want anything to do with the office. So she'd make me and my sisters clean that, which is not fun. But an on-farm chore that I hated that my dad would make me do was cleaning the cattle guards. And it was the worst. And I can tell he usually made me do it when he was mad at me for another reason. Go clean the cattle guards.
So that was like the shoot, I'm really in trouble. Like when you had to clean the cattle guards. Nice. And so, okay. So Annaliese, what was it like growing up with Liz as your mom? Because I mean, she is a mover and shaker. I don't know that Liz sits still, maybe once in a while so that she can drink a half a glass of wine at once, but but yeah. So what was it like? How would you describe growing up Liz? How would you describe growing up with Liz as your mom?
A little crazy because she's all over the place. Like you said, she never slows down. She's like, just calm down, one thing at a time, But mom was always the biggest cheerleader on the farm, the biggest supporter. Like you could call her the cheerleader of our farm because she wasn't feeding calves with us, but she was the one that was planning all the farm tours, all the on-farm events. She was putting us out there to connect with others. She was planning all these things. She was really the face of the farm. And so seeing her do all that is that's how I learned how to give a good farm tour and how to talk to consumers and relay a message properly. So just seeing her do all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and isn't it something how that's now your role that you stepped into?
Yeah,
just
crazy.
doing it on a different platform, social media. Right. Yeah, and so going back to growing up, Liz, what was one of your most memorable moments with mom on the farm as a kid?
I guess I just remember when we'd go to the cow shows, mom was always the one making sure we were set up to have a good time. Like she said, the kiddie pool, she always made sure we had the best snacks. I remember we didn't always get fruit roll-ups in Sunny D, but if we were going to a cow show, you better believe there was fruit roll-ups in Sunny D. So just being that cheerleader for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And so those are some of those good times, those good memories. And like you said, you saw by example, the way that Liz just took it upon herself to be a face and a representation and a voice for not just John D. Farms, but really as a spokesperson for the dairy industry. And so Liz, you were doing that stuff way before we had training programs and we had, all of the tools available that are today. When did you start telling that story? When did you make that your role at the farm?
I think it started, really early, thinking back when we went through our first big expansion. Neighbors were not happy. This was something different. This is when farms really weren't expanding yet. And I realized there's just so much they don't know. They were angry because they didn't have the right information. And so it kind of started there where I spent a lot of time with our neighbors, our community, and then just started opening the gates. Let's bring people here. Let's show them what we're doing. And, really building that connection on we're not different. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter. I feed my family the same food. Let's show you what we're doing. And that's really where it started. And then when I realized so many others just didn't know about this anymore, they weren't, as my kids went through school, they'd come home with certain science books or certain information they got. And I'm like, that's not right. That's wrong. And I would go into schools and try to teach and try to share. I did a lot of touring because I also helped run a nationwide farming organization that our whole platform was teaching others about who we were as farmers, teaching others about the changes in the industry, especially as it related to technology. And again, that opened so many avenues for me to meet with people who are like me when I was a city girl and didn't really understand where our food came from. And I found that I just loved it so much. I loved being relatable. I loved seeing that aha moment on their faces. I would go into downtown St. Paul and Minneapolis and go to those schools and bring tools and videos with me and just try to, help them understand that farmers are good and what we're doing is necessary to keep our world, filled, keep the bellies filled, right? And it's a lot of fun. The TV interviews, I did a lot of those. I never shied away from that. I mean, I've done NBC, ABC, CBS, and of course, BBC.
Okay, the BBC story, Liz, you shared this with me once, and I would love for you to share it with our listeners on the podcast today. So, and Annaliese, if you have memories of this event to chime in on, just jump right in.
I don't. I wish I do, but I literally have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Okay. Well, you're gonna laugh too and not be surprised. So, so I'm setting the stage and building the anticipation for what this BBC interview was like. And so, Liz, what you had shared with me, on this one time when we were just having a chit chat was that you were called from BBC they were doing like a couple of days, right, worth of almost like documentary type stuff, life in the day on a dairy farm, and at the end of a few days of filming was when the reporter stuck a mic in your face with the gotcha question. And so walk us through what that was like.
Well, for a couple of days, it was great. We really bonded, with this group of men from BBC, and we thought they were learning so much and having fun. And a lot of the focus was on technology, especially at the time, Posilac. And we felt great. And then at the end, it was like that last little segment, like you said, microphone in my face. And all of a sudden they turned on me. That whole relationship we thought we built was gone. And it was kind of live tape. And they're like, hey, we've heard a lot about Posilac and we've heard stories about, what it does to the hormones, especially in girls and women, and, causing their breasts to be bigger. And you have a big chest. That's flat out what they said to me. And I'm on camera. And I'm like, at the time was standing right next to me. And I'm like, how do I word this? So, again, I go into the safety of the product and remind them, hey, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I wasn't near any of these hormones and such. And the product just came out. And here are my girls. They've grown up on the farm. And at the time they were young. I'm like, they don't look like they're developing too fast to me. So I think we're good. But wow, it was a shocker. And, and that's what interviewers like to do, is give you that question that's just going to be like, oh, how is she going to answer this? And when we got done, my husband at the time just looked at me and he was so angry. He's like, how did you handle that? And I'm like, you just had to, right? You had to tell the truth. You had to be honest.
Yeah. And so these are the things that even in today's modern media training that a person may not be prepared to answer. But I want to take this moment to go over to Annaliese, because Annaliese, like, these are the things that you saw mom doing growing up, where being this voice, being this advocate, being this face, putting herself out there to share Dairy's story. And before you knew it, as you stepped into adulthood on your own dairy farm with your husband, Tom, you started doing the same things. And so I'm curious, Annaliese, how has Liz helped you along the way when you started doing this advocating online as modern day farm chick?
When I first started, I mean, I started sharing my story 10, 11-ish years ago. And for a while, like I was scared to do it, didn't want to do it, didn't think it was important because I was like, we already have, Dairy Carrie, all these other bloggers online. Like, what difference will I make? I don't need to share my story. But I was sharing different blog posts and articles from dairy farmers who were online with my maternal grandparents. Like my mom said, she grew up in the city. So my grandparents, when it comes to modern agriculture, they're kind of clueless. So I would share bits and pieces with them. And it was a particular article about animal abuse that really resonated with my grandma. And she immediately called me and began telling me how well written it was, how informative it was. And she thought I wrote it. And that's kind of what got me thinking, like, well, I could do this. I could blog. I mean, at least to keep my grandma and grandpa in the loop. And so I got started on WordPress.com and just started talking about farm life. And I remember calling mom and telling her I was going to do it. And she was like, yes, this is great. You should do this. And she, again, a big cheerleader, a big supporter. But the way she advocated in the past and the way I was going, with social media and blogs, like she, no offense, mom, it's like, I don't know what Facebook is, but yes, you go do that,
Yeah. And so you must have run into scenarios, probably like your mom. And so do you mirror her experiences, both of those good ones where you've put yourself out there, you've connected with people and you see that response and engagement that's positive, but then also kind of those scenarios that Liz just mentioned as well, where, maybe you've been almost like targeted or people have come back at you with some of those gotcha type, questions. How have you handled those situations? And has Liz been able to help you manage through some of that?
Yeah, those keyboard warriors, they're out there, and then there's those people. And then of course there's the animal activists who really just pick a target each and every day and bombard you with ridiculous comments. And I remember when I had my first animal activist attack online, and at first, like, my blood was boiling. I was so angry. How could they think these things, and you want to take the time to holler back at each and every one of them. But after that first attack, I realized this is not worth my time. I am not going to change these people's opinions. They don't consume dairy or animal products. They're not going to. They are not my audience. So ever since then, if I get an animal activist attack, I usually just ignore it, let it ride out. I'd much rather have conversations with people who consume dairy and want to learn about where their products come from. And normally, when you get an animal activist attack, it usually boosts your engagement and you get more followers anyway. So I'm just like, bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
And that response does not surprise me because here again, I know that your mom doesn't back down from a challenge either, right, Liz?
Nope. And I would remember when she first started, like she said, she's like, I need to do this. And then when she got, a few snarky comments, she would call me and we just kind of talked through it. And she did the best thing, rising above it and not even trying to help them because she's right. There's nothing she could have done.
Yeah. Yeah. So between both of you and your advocacy that you've been doing for a very long time, has there ever been a moment when you wanted to quit?
Not for me. I've always really enjoyed sharing my story and connecting with people outside of agriculture and within agriculture. And yeah, there's a lot of negative feedback, but the positive greatly outweighs the bad. I've had so many nice comments from people or people who are like, holy, can I say shit on here?
Sure. Yeah.
Holy shit. You really, saved me so much money because I thought this and now I realize this. And, if I can help one person feel more comfortable in the grocery store or about food and farming, it's totally worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you share that same sentiment, Liz?
Absolutely. And it's funny, you just brought up helping someone in the grocery store. Those kind of things like feed me. And when I would be in a grocery store and see something like, corn chicken that's now $8.99 a pound. I just start talking to people that were around, that area and, trying to help them. And same with watching someone in the dairy aisle, really struggle with what product to buy. I just go up and start talking to them. And, sometimes people might have been a little pissed off, but most of the time they were like, wow, thank you. Didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. And you could definitely speak from your credibility as a dairy farmer, and that was your identity for a really long time, being part of John D. Farm, being the farm, a farmer, also being a mother to these girls you're raising on the farm, and then things changed. Life changed. Liz, what happened?
Well, it was a struggle, a shock. Like you say, you're in what do you call the prime of your life? You're just happy. You love what you're doing. I felt it was really my purpose. And, things changed. An unexpected divorce happened. And for me, I just really went backwards. I feel like I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore, what I was supposed to do. I knew I still had, girls to raise and make sure they got everything they need, but I flapped and fluttered and really kind of spiraled downwards. And that whole losing your identity is the hardest struggle because you just don't know. I mean, when you reached doing what you love so much, I woke up every day loving what I did to, now what am I going to do? And just didn't even know who I was.
Yeah. So there was a divorce, situation where it wasn't just the divorce of a marriage, but you were divorcing from the dairy farm that you had been there from, as you mentioned before, growing that business from 80 cows to what size were you guys by then?
1,600.
1,600 cows. And so that had become your life, your identity, what you were known for, what you'd built, your identity around, as you said, and then things changed. And Annaliese, how old were you at this time?
I was a senior in college.
And the other girls would have been still at home?
Michaela was in college and Eva was at home.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but you weren't far from home, right? You're at River Falls, so close by to family. And so you got this front row seat to watching this big change in Mom's life. And so what I'm really curious to hear from you, Annaliese, is during that time, what did you admire most about your mom and how she handled adversity?
It was a hard time for all of us, right? We were all very broken. We had a front row seat to something I never wanted a front row seat. I didn't want to see either of my parents that way. And so it was rough for a really long time. We weren't great. Mom wasn't great. But what I admire about her now is her willingness to continue to find herself, to find her place in agriculture, to keep trying new things and figure out what she loves and where she belongs again.
Yeah. Yeah. Liz, how does it feel to hear that from Annaliese?
Well, good. I know it was a struggle. You talk about me being the cheerleader, Annaliese, but during that time, my 3 girls probably were the cheerleader for me, trying to, help me. I remember the day I got the call that I won Dairy Woman of the Year, and it was a call from a gentleman I went to college with. And I remember saying, I can't even accept this. I'm not a farmer anymore, because that's how I felt, that I lost that identity. And he was like, absolutely not. You deserve this. Look what you've done. But it was hard to go through that. And I know I made mistakes in that path. And, hopefully I didn't hurt my girls too much. But, they were really there for me, even though they were going through their own struggles as well.
Yeah, yeah, and Liz, this is kind of one of the first times you've opened up about this side of your story. You've told Dairy's story for a very long time, but there's this story in you that that you're really ready to start to share more. And they say that your test becomes your testimony, right? Like that rough time that you were able to, as Annaliese said, just she was able to watch you pull yourself out and keep finding, your path and your niche. But this is now something that you want to do more of, is helping other people, whether it's, a divorce situation or a change in a family farming business structure, people considering leaving the farm or coming back to the farm. It's all of these things together that now are the place where you're able to lend so much wisdom and experience. So tell us a little bit about how you're hoping to take this very honest and hard, story of what you went through, but also the other side of where you are now. How would you like to share it, and how do you hope it helps others out there?
Well, I want to go back a step because Annaliese was pretty pivotal in this, because she gets so many contacts and calls because of, who she is. She would get calls from people who are kind of in the same boat as me and struggling. And she'd be like, you need to talk to my mom. And as I built those relationships and I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, but just shared my experience with them and what worked and didn't work. And to see them, taking those steps maybe faster than I did because of what we shared and the relationship we built. And that's kind of what sparked it. And so, I thank Annaliese for that. And then one day I called her and I said, I think I'm ready to share this story in a speech. And she felt I was ready to, you're over the kind of the angry side and you're just, hey, this is my life. And here's the mistakes I went, here are the roads I went down. Here's how I spiraled down and here's how I got back up. And I'm still, obviously working on that, but it's a story I want to share in a speech, and it's unexpected detours because none of us know where life is going to take us. And how can we be ready for that detour? And what do we do if we stop at a really bad rest stop and it's not good for us physically and emotionally? How can we change that? And so I really want to share what worked for me, again, just sharing that part of the story. And like you said, it's not just divorce. It can be death. It can be an accident, illness, fighting in a family farm, losing the farm. There's so many things that put us in that bucket of who am I now? What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. And Liz, your willingness to share that is going to be a tremendous way to help other people that are in a place where you once were, could relate to in some way. And so one of the first places you'll be sharing more about that is an event that you and I have coming up together, May 19th, a little ditty we do every year called Bloom. And it's a Wisconsin based event for farm women. And that's one of the things on the agenda this year is Liz starting to share that unexpected detour story. And I'm so proud and honored to get to be one of the venues that you start sharing that story through, Liz, because it will have an incredible impact on others in this community that need to know they're not alone and just need a little guidance as they take those next steps. So, Annaliese, now over in your world, you've made this announcement that you have something, your own powerful message that you are ready to start sharing and taking out as a speaking platform. And you're just rolling that out right now. So Fill us in. What's it all about?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been sharing my story online, and I've always believed that everybody has a story to share and everybody has a unique perspective. The way I share my story might not resonate with somebody, but the way you share it might. And that's why it's so important for everyone to share in our own way. And that doesn't mean you have to be online or speak or be on podcasts like this. Like, there's so many different ways to make a difference. And that's kind of what I want to help people find within my speech, within my course, within my workbook, within social media, is find what works for you, not only to help people, but because it's going to have an amazing impact for you too. Like, I really want to encourage people to be their authentic self themselves. We as women in agriculture, I think, go through so many detours, like Mom says, or role changes. And sometimes it's easy to say yes to things that really don't serve us, things we don't want to do because we think we have to do it because it's what's best for the family, the farm, for agriculture. But when you can find your modern day farm chick and the things that really light a fire under your ass and excite you, you're going to do a much better job at serving other people and yourself. And so that's what I really want to help people find, is that inner modern day farm chick.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so for you, as you just said, you want to help other people find the things that light that fire, right? And so for you, what lights your fire?
I think so many things. And again, that goes back to what being a modern day farm chick is about, is I'm not just a farmer and just a mom. I also enjoy talking to people and going to different events and hosting events. But then I get tired of that and I like to go back and just farm and hang out with my family and be outside. I also really like being creative, which is why social media is a great outlet for me. I get to use my creativity over there. I like to write. Social media is great for that. So it's just doing all the things that make me, me.
That make you, unapologetically. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And, I think there's so many of us, and look at the three of us sitting right here, right? Like, we each have our roles in the dairy industry. We also each have side businesses that, some could argue have nothing to do with dairy. I grow hemp for CBD in my backyard and have a whole separate business based on that for health and wellness purposes only, and I think the two of you are consumers of those products as well. But look at Liz, between the dairy industry stuff and then also having this fun business with the online boutique. And Annaliese, you're doing all of this advocacy and, like you just talked about, combining the writing and the creative stuff and being able to, get out and do those things. And then you have a skincare business, that you do on the side as well. And so I used to feel that there was a lot of pressure that we all had to pick one thing and do it well. And depending on what you subscribe to and, thoughts and voices from all the people in the world that want to tell you what it takes to be successful, I used to really feel this pressure that you had to pick one thing. And what I've learned for myself personally, and what honestly, I've learned because I've watched the two of you, not have to box yourself into one thing and say, you know what, success for me looks like doing a combination of things that, going back to your words, Annaliese, light that fire. And that's so exciting that this is your path, and this new purpose that you're rolling out is to help other women be okay with who they are and be more of who they are instead of trying to fit themselves into that box. Is that would you say that's part of what your hope and dream is there too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you can do all the things that make you happy, not only are you going to be happy, but you're going to be able to more effectively share your story. Because I've always said the best way to promote agriculture is by not talking about it. Just be yourself first, be a human. You're more than a farmer, more than your job title. And when you can lead with all your other hobbies and interests and find common ground with people there, you're going to be much more apt to get your message and your story across. When people do have questions about agriculture, they're going to come to you and they're going to trust you because you've already bonded over other things. And yeah, so that's why it's more important in more than one way to just be yourself. You are the niche, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love all this. And so Liz, so you are in the spot right now on our little recording together where you get to hear Annaliese talk about what she's up to. How does it make you feel as a mom to hear your daughter saying these things and finding her path in this direction?
Well, obviously, it's a very proud mama moment, and I'm super proud of all three of my girls. They've all remained in the dairy industry, and that couldn't make me happier. But it's funny, as we were talking about this, I'm remembering back to Annaliese's senior year in high school. She yes, always worked on the farm, enjoyed it, but she had this time where she was thinking, maybe it was junior year, going to school for English, because she's also, really good with that. And I remember the day, I think you were out moving shit with the skid steer, and you called me and Dad, and you're like, I think I've changed my mind. I think I can do this. Remember that? And it's
No.
like, that was kind of her epiphany. And all of a sudden, changed her major. And not that she had been in college yet, just as you're planning. And it was kind of funny. And that was her path. And she's taken it to such different levels that is amazing. I mean, I love that she's doing so much. She is very driven.
Yeah. I wonder where she gets that from. And Annaliese, I'm going to toss that back to you. And you just got to hear your mom, articulate the platform that she's ready to start sharing on. And you've been, with her and having these, you guys have really supported each other in being able to, find the path and the courage and the words to get out and speak about so much more than you ever started sharing about. How does it feel for you to see your mom just continuing to serve the dairy community in even more meaningful and impactful ways?
Yeah, I'm super excited for her speaking, and for her to kind of keep working with dairies and all their HR and PR stuff, because she's always been a speaker. Me and my sisters all make fun of her on her A Farm Chick's Closet social media, because she can't just talk naturally. She's always in speaker mode. And it's like, you're meant to speak. You're meant to be in front of a group, and talk and share your story and help other people. And so I'm excited for her to kick this off.
Yeah, that is so wonderful. Well, I'll tell you what, Annaliese and Liz, it is such a treat to have the two of you on this episode together, having this conversation, feeling like we're all in one room, even though we're all virtual, logging in virtually. But really what comes out of this is the energy and the excitement that each of you have as a mother and daughter for supporting each other in what you're doing, the way that you both inspire each other, but the way that you've also supported each other, given each other, the courage and the confidence to continue on your paths, but know that everything that the two of you are doing is showing other women out there that they can do these same things and find their own paths too. So as one of those women myself, thank you both for what you do. And as we wrap up this episode of the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, if you are a regular listener, I always end the episodes with the Uplevel 5. And so we're going to do a little twist on that, since this is in anticipation of Mother's Day and celebrating this mother-daughter relationship that we have. And Annaliese, you're a mom as well, and a mom to a young daughter. So I'm going to ask you a few questions to tie all of this together in this little fun twist on the Uplevel 5. And so, first question, what does success look like to you as a mom?
Success to me as a mom is having happy kids, and kids that are just living life and being there with them. Like, time goes so fast. Like, we only get 18 summers with them. So I just hope that I am creating core memories for them all the time, and that when they look back on their childhood, they always remember like mom being there and mom trying to make the best of every day and every situation, and mom being a weirdo and mom being fun, or whatever that looks like. I hope they have a good childhood memory of me and that they continue to be happy and successful.
Yeah. And Liz, how about you? What does success look like to you as a mom?
Well, keeping my kids out of jail, that's always good.
Were you successful, Liz? Were you successful?
There was one time in Country Fest jail.
Well, yeah.
The truth comes out. This is when it gets good, folks. What else you got? What else you got?
I came, I saw, I helped. But yeah, that happened. But no, most importantly was, giving them the advice, the support to really believe in themselves and to be strong, self-assured women, which, knock on wood, I feel I've accomplished. I mean, obviously it's not just me, it takes a tribe, but I want them to be happy, yeah, but they gotta love themselves and love life. And I think they're all doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, next question. In 3 words, how would you describe each other?
I would say mom is supportive, driven, and then a little manic. A little crazy, a little like all over the place sometimes.
All right, Liz, now it's your turn. 3 words to describe your daughter, Annaliese.
Well, it's funny that she picked one of the same ones I did, which is devoted.
Manic? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it depends what we're doing. No, I chose the words. I mean, loving. She is very loving, not only to, her husband and kids, but to all of us. She's the first one to always, think about others and what can we do. And so that's amazing. And obviously very driven and devoted. When she's picks a project, she's all in. Like, she's also helping me, release the speech, if you will, but also build my consulting. And gosh, I couldn't do it without her because she's on me. Like, come on, we can do this. And I appreciate it because so much of this is scary. Like she said, social media. I'm still trying to work that one out. So yeah, those are the loving, devoted, and driven.
Yeah. Aw. And next question. Who are 1 or 2 thought leaders that each of you follow?
I'm a big Jenna Kutcher fan, and then Gabby Bernstein.
Ah, yes. I like both of those as well. Non-traditional agricultural voices.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And Liz, how about you?
So I struggle with this one because I'm really all over the board. It really depends on the place I'm in at that moment of who inspires me and what I hear. So for me, like I said, it's just an array. And yet my girls are the solid. They always inspire me. They always help me. I talk to all 3 of them almost every day. And that's what helps me. And then Peggy, if I may, you are. I mean, many times I call you and, we talk through things together and that helps. It all depends on what your question is, what you're needing at that moment in life.
No, now I'm going to ugly cry. Oh gosh, that was so nice. Thank you. But look at, yeah, as you mentioned though, your 3 girls. Yeah, they inspire you and they inspire a lot of other people too. See, I'm not kidding. I'm getting watery. Oh, okay. Pull it back together. All right. So I usually ask people, what are the words you live by? I want to know, what words do you want your kids to live by?
I want my kids to live by the words like, do what makes you happy, find what makes you happy, and then use that to serve other people.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Find your unique gift and exploit it in the service of others.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. And Liz, how about you?
Just that they believe in themselves. They're self-assured because then they can go on to do anything, but they really have to look deep and have the confidence.
Yeah. And you have role modeled that so well. And last question I have for you is, so I typically ask in this last Uplevel 5 question, what's your next personal up level? But what I want to know from the two of you is, what is the next up level in your mother-daughter relationship?
Ooh, I don't know. I think I'm excited, to help her build that consulting business and the speaking business. So I think that's probably going to be our next big project that we get to do together. Outside of just being mom and daughter and a family, but if we're talking from a business standpoint or something like that, I think it's working on that together.
Aw. And Liz, how about you?
That's exactly what I was going to say, because she's already, stepped in to help do so much. And it's like, well, if we get this going and it works good, what are the other things can we do? And that's one thing about Annaliese, she's always got good ideas. Sometimes I'm just in the moment and she can really, see into the future. Well, we can do this next. You can do this next. And that's awesome.
Oh, so you guys have a pretty cool relationship, and it's developing into more than just a mother-daughter relationship. You're taking that to its next level by supporting each other in the work that you're doing to really serve the dairy community in a new and unique way. And again, I'm grateful that I get to be a little fly on the wall and a partaker in the good things that both of you put out. And so I know our listeners out there, some of them are already following the work that both of you are doing. And I'll include some links in my show notes. But I would love for each of you to share where people can best follow you and also connect with you about these stories that you're looking to share more of.
Yeah, so for all things Annaliese Wegner, you can go to annaliesewegner.com. And then you can find me on Facebook at Modern Day Farm Chick and Instagram at Mod Farm Chick, and kind of sometimes TikTok at Mod Farm Chick.
Sometimes TikTok. Awesome. Good to know. Good to know. And for any of the speaking related things, as you share your platform more, it's annaliesewegner.com.
Yep.
Excellent. And we'll include all those links. And Liz, where can people find you?
Well, we just recently, thanks to Annaliese, launched It's Liz Griffith on Instagram. So you can find me there. Otherwise, on Facebook, it's Liz Griffith. And then, of course, we have a Farm Chicks Closet that is on Instagram and Facebook. So many ways to connect. And I'm also on LinkedIn, but I'm not very good about that.
So don't contact Liz via LinkedIn. Excellent. Well, all right, ladies, thank you so much for joining me on the Uplevel Dairy podcast. It's been such a pleasure, so much fun. And as we head into this season of celebrating moms and this mother-daughter relationship, I can't think of two other people better than the two of you to have this conversation with. Thanks for jumping on, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
This episode is sponsored by Uplevel Dairy Podcast founding partner Adiseo, a global leader in nutritional solutions and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production, capture more value from components, and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. Feed is the greatest expense on any dairy operation, and don't you want to know how an adjustment to the ration will affect your bottom line? Adiseo empowers producers and nutritionists to make informed ration balancing decisions with milkpay.com. Customizable to your dairy's own data, this profitability calculator puts the power of real-time milk market information in the palm of your hand. Find out how much your latest ration change is really costing you at milkpay.com or the free MilkPay app available on iOS. Thank you for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen, and if you like what you heard today, go ahead and head on over to upleveldairy.com to read the blog and join the Uplevel Dairy email list so you can receive new podcasts, blogs, and special offers coming soon from Uplevel Dairy straight in your inbox. To listen to more episodes, head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and don't forget to rate and review. Connect with me, Peggy at upleveldairy.com, and follow Uplevel Dairy on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.